Remember, please hit like and subscribe for me. Thank you so much. Okay, let's go. Hi, everyone. Today is Thursday, August the 28th. My name is Anne-Marie Band, and this is the Moneyball Morning Report for the Benzinga Pro platform, starting the day taking a look at the ES. We've got 3 days of volume. We can see that we still have a lot of volume down here. That's where the big volume pocket is. We are in the midst of this bimodal distribution. Trend is up. Momentum is up. Do we have a topping formation here? You could argue that there is a little bit of sideways formation between particularly this inventory event where we had a lot of momentum and the following higher highs that have less momentum. So this suggests to me that we have dip buying opportunities on the horizon. Now, we could still be in the middle of this gigantic megaphone we're building that brings us all the way back down to the point of control, which is down here at 64.56. So we have a little bit of a mixed bag. How do we define the mixed bag and build the rails around it? We're going to look at the last 30 minutes of the day and see that the low end of the 330 candlestick, 6,492, high end, 6,502. All right, so we've got about 10 points of noise there that gives us that. And then our opening range candlestick has a high of 6,484 and a low of 6,472. I still like this area as a buy zone, 6,472. So could you trade it short all the way down there? Yes, but it's not going to go in a straight line for you. Okay, so look for bounces into prior resistance that give you a shot at doing that. My suspicion is that it's and that last 30 minutes. So what we are looking for here, traders, looking for support. Going to see where they find it. Once they find it, they're going to give us a bounce, and then the failed bounce of 6,494 will deliver a short entry that could bring it all the way down. If for happenstance we don't fail that, and it's a look below and hold, then we're going to move all the way to the top of the box. Which way does it go? Your guess is as good as mine. How do we do that? Anne-Marie, how do I know which way to trade? You collapse into your 1 minute, and then you look for something that gives you, I don't know, people like to look for Dakota's 3-bar reversal. That only works in specific places, okay? Most of the time, those 3-bar reversals, if they're with trend, great. If they are against trend, it's just a reflexive move into the prior trend in focus, and then it reverts. So be careful there. Dakota has structures around that build that presence. So that's what we're staring down. Now, here I can see, what is this? Good grief. 1, 2, 3. We got maybe 3 hours of price action up here at 6,498, all the way to 6,500. Your stop's going to be a little wiggly there, right? Could you chase it down here? You could, but there's support right here, right? You got support at the 63 moving average and all of this old resistance. So you want to be careful. Make sure the juice is worth the squeeze, as they say. All right, let's get to the NQ. One of my sons is competing in an international jiu-jitsu competition today. And I've got some wiggles. Concerned about him, but he'll do great. All right. Here we go. NQ. Sorry about that non sequitur there. He was just on my mind, and I just thought I would vocally express that. Okay, so the open of the last 30-minute candlestick in the NQ yesterday is actually sitting right at the point of control. Very interesting. 23,598. Okay? We are losing that area right now. What does this tell you? If we lose this zone, but there's a moving average that's sitting here that's flat, We have another average that's sitting sideways, but also generally flat. And yesterday we built a megaphone. Could this be a diamond pattern? We don't talk about diamond patterns a lot because, I think they're totally made up, really. I mean, you can see the diamond, a la baseball diamond, but I don't know, I think it's kind of a wonky thing to go over. So here's a low volume pocket, bimodal distribution, VWAP all the way down here at 23,548, big NVIDIA wick. I mean, monster. And it never got back to the high of it overnight. Very important. As a matter of fact, it couldn't even hold the open of this downward candlestick formation. Also mildly bearish, if you ask me. All right? My suspicion is that this one is going to leak and try to find a floor somewhere around value area low near 23,500, 23,520. So last 30-minute candlestick of the day, first 30-minute candlestick of the day. Look at the legs on this thing. What? Look at the size of the wicks. Notice overnight, where does the support floor come? At the base of that 30-minute candlestick open. I know. Well, why even look at these boxes? Because they matter, folks. They actually matter. And so what they'll be looking for, in my mind, we have the open of that first 30-minute candlestick, and we have the close, which is below, right? Because it's a bearish candle. So 23,534, they tried to hold the floor, and they bounced really well. Let's see if they actually bounced at the open. Looks like they did. They bounced at the open of this first 30-minute candlestick formation. That feels a little bit like desperation, right? Oh no, it'll hold this. Let's try this, and enough people were moving around that it could hold, right? So what have we done in the overnight? We've retraced the entire move down back to the move up. There's momentum here, right? I think dips are going to be buys. I do. The market feels like they just want to find any reason to buy. And so that first edge, if it loses this edge at 23,600, that next edge is 23,565 below, right? Look at the 63, how flat it is. See, what builds a flat moving average is price action above, price action below, price action above. It'll change slope if we hold a series of higher lows. I do believe dips are buys here today. We'll see though, right? Outsized volume at about 4 a.m. That's London's open. They really tried to do it. But again, they wick above the high of that opening candlestick. The high of the last 30-minute candlestick, and they can't stay there, right? That's bearish. So it's in mean reversion. Doing the same thing, as I mentioned, it's time for the bounce. Let's take a look at micro Bitcoin. I've got a terrible headache this morning. All right, so as I said yesterday, I said, hey, the buyers are going to try and come in and hold the floor here, right? The day before that, we had that 108,000, and now look at the rotation, right? Desperate to buy the base. So you could look at this and go, oh my gosh, are we sitting in some kind of base? Is this an inverted head and shoulders? And no, this is a range play. And so if I were a betting man, I would say that the line that we need to watch, see if I can find a big volume one. So here's a volume candlestick. This 113,460. Yesterday I said, hey, listen, I would see if I could build a short at 112. And, it gave it to me just in too many meetings. Wednesdays is not a good day for me to focus on charts. I have too many other things going on. And so that came right in as I expected, faded into the volume point of the control and the VWAP. This tells us when the volume point control and the VWAP are literally on top of each other, you're going to see compressed price action like this. I would not be surprised to watch it fall back into the range. The highest volume candlestick of the day, of course, is that NVIDIA candlestick. We're going to track Bitcoin a little bit differently. Oh, for goodness sakes. We're going to track Bitcoin a little bit differently in terms of high volume candles, simply because it runs in a little bit of a proxy to the NQ and is normally following behind. So this 4 o'clock candle wick, they breached it, and now they're up here at resistance. We've got a little bit of a crossover event, but remember, trend is always master and commander. So if momentum is down but trend is up, they're looking for a floor that they can buy. It's not a reversal event per se. Now, it could turn into one, but they're going to try and bounce it off of that ledge. You can see old resistance, new support. So there's a very big rock fight going on here. And I try to use the word rock fight when I'm talking about the markets to give you the sense that there's a requirement of respect around risk. Some of us trading our combines, we forget that what we are practicing for is how to move real money. Think about that for a second. Real money, real money that we work and toil for. So put that in your little mental framework. Somebody said today in the stream, it's just so easy to start over. Well, you got to mentally frame out and say, you can't really start over if it's real money. You could start over, but the pile of money that you burned in a trash heap over here, you're going to have to replenish before you do it again. So just remember, that's why we trade the combine. We trade the combine so we can practice. So when we get to the real money, it's not going to end up in a dumpster fire. All right, sorry, I'm done. Okay, so the high of this 4 p.m. candlestick, 112,500. That's probably going to be the floor of support. Value area high, a little bit higher than that. Anne-Marie, you sound so bearish. Couldn't the price action be moving to the north? Why, yes, friends, it sure could. Absolutely. The 63 moving average sits, well, that's just a big fat mess. So we're either going to get a floorboard and have resistance at around 113,000 to 114,000 and then rotate, because this is clearly mean reversion in a negative trend, right? It's reverting to the mean, going to the mean, at which point we've got rotation. And right now that mean reversion is intact. That's why dip buying is fairly valid until you get to the target points. And then you got to go, you know what, I'm getting out of here. But could we get to 115,000? Yes, that's value area low. Could something dramatic, crazy, lights out bananas give us something? Sure, absolutely. And it sends us into the volume pocket of this 4-hour candlestick on August the 22nd. So a lot of volume here, right? A lot of volume. They bought the dip. Looks like some kind of crazy news to me. I don't know. But now we are inside here. So the dip, ideally, if this is going to hold form, the dip is going to give us the long at our old resistance areas or our old broken support, 112,470, all the way down to 112,000. And then the reflexive motion to the north takes us to the walk-up space. Bitcoin is really, this micro Bitcoin contract is, it's not hard to trade. And the risk events are fairly, they're nice. They're not crazy. Right? You can go with one or two and have tons of fun with that one. Let's go to oil. All right. Oil. Now, remember, commodities close at different times than equities. And the oil commodity closes at, I think, 2:30, something like that. I can't remember. But look at what we gave here. Look at this formation. See how low momentum is? Trend is down, momentum is down. We know the bounce going to give us a sell zone. Here we have trend up on the tight moving average, down on the slow moving average, the big bounce, the first pass of the topping formation. Traders will usually sell that price, right? And that number is, we need another line, That number is the high of the closing candlestick at $64.20. The low is the VWAP, $63.91. We pulled back. Look at what we hit. 63, moving average. Low volume node, bounced right off of the range. Where are we headed to now? Well, what is near-term trend? Up and up and up. Dips or buy zones, right? Now, could you buy a breakout? You could. It would move into these candles above, these risk events above, but I don't normally like to do that. I like to see a pullback. I like to see buyers come in, and then I'll run up the hill to the next space. It does look like wherever it moves, it's going to fade, right? It just does. Reflexive motion is suggesting that this is a volume exhaustion event, potentially to the north, which could be $64.53. All right. Low edge of the frame, $63.28. You know, the administration is trying to get oil lower, talking it down, doing X, Y, or Z, whatever the case is. Markets will move, but ultimately we're still in backwardation, and that means the forward contracts are cheaper than the present contract, which is unusual. So the bounces, even if they're big spikes, like this one yesterday, will fade. So that's what we're working through. We'll see how that goes. All right, let's take a look at gold. Okay. Okay, that's not gold. GC Q25. Huh. That's weird. Oh, geez. GC1. Let's see if this gives it to us. And no. GC2. No. GC3. Okay, let's give me an update in the middle of the space. Now let's see. GCZ. What a knucklehead. Good grief, Amory. All right. So, here's the thing about gold. Gold closes at 1 p.m. Okay? 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's where you're going to see the big spikes in gold outside of the noise, right? And so, excuse me, it's 12:30 to 1. So yes, 1 p.m. So here we are. We're really trying to build a new volume shelf right here. Really got a good spike going. I suspect that, there's an intrinsic reason that gold continues to rise, and it's because central banks are buying up the physical stuff, right? And so the futures are running in tandem. This is a clear upward trend formation. We got to zoom out a little bit to see the big pictures. The biggest 4-hour volume candlestick in our current strike zone is right here at $3,468. That is very likely to be resistance. If, per happenstance, it breaks through it, it's going to go to the top of the volume node, in my mind, right? This high volume node right here. That's going to be old support that became resistance, and that very same test to hold the new support forces us right back down in the range. So what are we doing? I think we're going to stay choppy in here. Could we move through this volume candlestick, this wick? That's the big volume candlestick we're watching from 3,468 to 3,492. Very likely. Very, very likely. But if not, We're going to head right back down into the space. Value area low, 3,439. 3,400, one of the traders yesterday said, we just got some high volume up over XYZ, and the number was 3,449, 3,450. And the market had already closed. And I said, listen, I don't like buying the breakout there, but I wouldn't mind looking for a dip that was anywhere between 3,440 and 3,438. And wouldn't you know it, look at where it comes into. Our low here, 3,443. Now, if you're waiting down there at 3,440, you're probably a little miffed because it didn't come to you. But again, old resistance, new support, it tells you where they're framing out, right? As time moves forward, it tells you where it's framing out. So next biggest candlestick beside this one, these are the two candlesticks that gold is caught in front of. With a high node at around 3,423. If, per happenstance, we could come in and test that zone, I think it would make a nice buy. Trend is up on the tight time frame. Slower time frame shows us just very sideways. So trend is up, probably going into some kind of volume exhaustion event. But clearly, if momentum is up and trend is up, dips are buys. So, we might get another shot at that 3,443, maybe even retesting the high volume candle that gave us 3,450. All right, lastly, we'll take a look at SPY. SPY was an interesting one yesterday. So I had the short 646 calls into the close because I did leave my option trades to do their thing. And I certainly had the feeling that it was going to rotate backwards. But you can have a feeling and be very, very wrong. And so made the end of the day a little bit squirrely, but all good in general for those to expire worthless, which is great because I had sold them. All right, what are we staring down? Big 4-hour candlestick break. That's a big one. Notice the momentum. We got a break on diminished momentum. Oh, does that mean short? Not if trend is up. Both moving averages are up. If both moving averages are up and this is pointing upwards, it does not matter in the near term that the momentum is divergent. Now, it will matter later on as it exhausts to the north, but dips are clearly buy zones today. Clearly buy zones. So where is the dip? I think 642 might be a little low. So let's shift that candle to the overnight low, 643. Where's the high? 649 to 650, right? Dip surprise. If you see it losing the framework of support, get out immediately. You can always get back in, folks. Paper cut way better than a hatchet to the chest, okay? All right. Take care, everybody. I'll see you on the streams.